Today's edition of Mac Voices is supported by MacVoices Magazine, our free Flipboard magazine that brings you some of the best Mac, iPhone, and iPad productivity tips on the web. High in signal, low in noise, just like Mac Voices, MacVoices Magazine includes information on how you can get more out of your Apple technology. Subscribe at macvoices.com/magazine or search for Mac Voices Magazine on Flipboard. Welcome to Mac Voices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, we're still on the road to Macstock because there's still a lot of great presenters to talk to, a lot of great topics to cover, and we want you to know what you're going to hear if you come to Woodstock, Illinois, just outside of Chicago in July for Macstock. This time, we have a returning guest and returning speaker to Macstock, Matt Hillyer. Matt, welcome. It's good to talk to you.
Thanks. Nice to see you again.
Good to see you. Good to see you. I'm looking forward to your talk this year. You're going to talk about something that I've played with a little bit, not as much as I should, and definitely not as much as I want to, and that is if this, then that. So tell us what if this, then that is, and then we'll get into what you can do with it.
It's a web-based service that plugs into, I don't know how many offhand, probably 30 or 40 different services. So like Nest thermostats or Arduino boards or, garage door openers, or even your email or a calendar. And you just basically set up rules and say, if this trigger happens, then do this action. And you can automate quite a bit of your life with it.
Now, not having done enough of this, I'm not quite sure. Is this primarily an Internet of Things service, or can you do more than that, or you just don't have to be into that kind of thing?
I think it's a little bit of both, right? So it's a little bit of Internet of Things where, it like I said, it plugs into things like garage door openers or Nest thermostats or even your appliances, if they're like GE or certain other brands of appliances. And then there's like this whole other component of like web services. So you can do things like every email I get, log the subject line Google spreadsheet.
Okay. Do I want to do that?
Nah, maybe not. It also plugs into things like Automatic, which is a tracker for your vehicle. So one of the recipes is what they call it, is every time that Automatic shuts off and is done with a trip, it'll actually log that to a spreadsheet. So if you're using your vehicle for work, it'll actually log your miles. So that's kind of a good example of something actually useful from it.
It's always good to have actually useful.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the one thing I guess that I sometimes wonder. I see some of these interesting recipes floating around out there for if this, then that, but I can't say that they're always very practical. And I'm usually looking for practicality in my projects, especially my first projects.
I use it mostly for home automation. Right now I've got recipes like, if sunset, turn on my porch lights. If sunrise, turn off my porch lights. And
yeah, I guess that's something you can't really do with Siri. You could tell Siri to turn them on or off, but this happens automatically.
Exactly. And this happens at sunrise and sunset, whereas if you had like a digital timer, it would happen at a specific time every day.
Right. One thing I have to wonder about if this and that, because you're giving it this automatic control, if you will, of some of your Internet of Things devices. Do we have any security concerns over this?
As much as the services themselves put in for account login or account access. So I think Twitter uses OAuth, and then whatever Google puts in place. So you have to do like the one-time extra key if you have two-factor authentication or something like that. But once it's in, it's in. There's not really any extra security. So, I mean, theoretically, if somebody were to hack AccuWeather, I think is what they use for the sunrise and sunset, and manipulate that data, then my lights would start flashing on and off. And it's not always accurate either. Sometimes it never triggers. It's a lot better than it used to be. So I wouldn't definitely hook up your life support or anything really vital to it. But overall, it's pretty good for simple home automation, or really it's just kind of like for tracking activities like one of them is you can save all of your text messages on an Android device to a Google Doc or to a Google spreadsheet. So you can kind of do text message backup that way or something like that. I mean, it's pretty large. And I haven't really started working on my presentation yet, and hopefully no one from Macstock's watching. Um, but because it continues to add and grow, so I didn't really want to do something now and then have either the website change their format or function, or them to add a bunch of stuff and for me to miss it. So I think towards the end of it's June now, towards the end of this month is when I'm actually going to start digging into it deeper and looking at more of what they have to offer. Every day they add stuff.
That's the thing about some of this, the Internet of Things material. I'm thinking specifically the Amazon devices that I won't name because then I'll trigger them here or in your house or wherever.
Yeah, I have too.
But yeah, I do too. Even Siri. So many capabilities are being added that it is tough to keep up. It's one of the challenges that I find that I find out that my devices could have done something 2 months ago when I really wanted it to, and It was there. I just didn't know about it.
Yeah, I have a hard time keeping up. I actually had coffee with a friend last night, and she said that she loves her Amazon device, and she plays games with it and does all this stuff. And I'm like, I barely talk to mine. I use mine to turn my lights on and off in my bedroom. That's pretty much what I use it to do. And I have so much more functionality. I can open my garage door with it. I can do a lot more home automation with it. And I don't use it. I'm still used to doing a lot of things manually. I'm still pushing in PIN codes on my phone instead of using the fingerprint reader because half the time I forget it's there. It's definitely something you got to keep up with. And then as technology changes and as these things evolve, you've kind of stay on top of it and then force yourself to use it and be comfortable with changing, I think, your daily workflows, your daily activities.
I think you need to want to do something specific. Mm-hmm. And then, okay, I'm going to take the time to sit down and figure this out. And once it's done, exactly. It's done. And now you've got it and you've taken that first step. It's interesting to hear you as obviously you're an enthusiast to some degree of some of this stuff because you're doing your garage door and lights and all, to say that you aren't used to it. I mean, is it, I don't think you're resistant to change. Is it just you forget about it?
No. I forget about it. Also, from what I've found, it's unreliable most of the time, or it doesn't function the way you want. Hey, turn on my lights, turn on my lights, turn on my, how many times do you say that before you just walk over and flip on the switch? Or like I've had power outages or my hub has reset and I go to turn my lights off in my bedroom and I can't because they're actually not on a switch. They're all Hue lights. And so I actually have to go down and reset the Hue hub, go back up, wait for it to sync up, and then I can turn off my lights. So, it's most of the time it's good, but then when it fails spectacularly, and half your house is dark, and you can't turn on your TV.
Well, hopefully we don't get to that point. And interesting point though that you when you're designing some of this stuff and deciding what you're going to have in your home, you do need to sort of make backup plans. Otherwise, you'll find that you can't get your car out of the garage.
Yeah, I've had that problem too.
Oh, really? Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
that's good. Open the garage. Yeah, never happens.
You have to walk back in and use the button on the door.
Right. Matt, how approachable do you think, if this then that is, for someone that's just getting into this or wants to play with it?
So the entry is like using the technology is really easy. I think getting familiar with how it works can be a little bit overwhelming because it's a lot of these services. They just like, here, look at the catalog that we have, of services we offer, and it's like 200. And you're like, that's a lot. Where do I start? But really, you kind of have to go in with there's a couple of mindsets with if this then that, right? So it's very binary. If this happens, then that. You really can't string it. Which I might actually add at the very end of my talk, maybe a couple other services that are sort of like it, but they're a little bit more powerful. One of them is Stringify. So it's basically the same thing, but then you keep adding to it. It's not just one action. But so you think about it, like if this happens, then I want this to happen. So if my CO2 detector in my house goes off, it's a Nest Protect, turn on all the lights in my house to red. And so if this event happens, then do this action. And so if a Nest Protect and then trigger something, then Hue lights turn to red. So you're kind of integrating with two different things, Nest and Hue lights, and then, trigger and an action.
So what do we have to make this work? Obviously, we have to use if this, then that. Do we need an Amazon Echo an Amazon device or a Google device or a HomeKit device?
No, you don't. All right. So it's not just home automation. It's anything. If you want to log sunrise and sunset, these are kind of bad examples, but if you want to log a sunrise, right? So every sunrise, write it to a Google spreadsheet. So you could use AccuWeather on sunrise, event, trigger, and then write whatever data to the Google spreadsheet, which would probably be like the time or something. So it's a web service in and of itself. It ties in with other services and other devices that are, if they have a SDK that's open to if this, then that. So Google is an example of one that's wide open. There's an iPhone. There's some components in the iPhone. The Android devices are a little bit more open because they're a little bit more open structure than the iOS is. So you can do a couple more features with it. But I mean, it goes anywhere from smart home technology to there's a couple of recipes. If I share a photo on Instagram, share it naturally on Twitter. Don't share the URL, but actually post the picture. So that's something kind of useful where if you don't want to just keep posting the URLs in your Twitter feed, it'll actually post the picture. And so there's a trigger where it uses 3 web services, right? It uses Instagram, it uses Twitter, and it uses the if this, then that service itself.
That to me is a great example because I want to know. I'm sorry, I'm back to security a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So in that scenario, let's see. Well, I don't know. Do I need to give something, if this, then that, my Instagram password? Do I need to give it my Twitter password?
Yeah, so I honestly don't know how it stores, and this is actually some good questions that maybe I'll hit in the presentation. But when you say I want to use Instagram, I want to plug in Instagram, it'll actually say, okay, log in Instagram, and it logs in and it says you're logged in, and we've done our thing, and so now we can read your Instagram feed or we can post to your Instagram feed. And the same thing with Twitter, and the same thing with Skype, I think, or whatever. So whatever services, it'll actually log in, and it's basically got a persistent login or the ability to log into your account and do whatever. As far as how they store that data or encrypt it, I would hope it's safe. I mean, I would assume it's safe, but I don't know.
Well, my guess, and yeah, I don't know. You'll probably have to do some research on this.
Yeah.
I would guess it's no different than letting certain apps post to Twitter or read from Twitter or any of that.
Exactly.
And those are perfectly safe and secure. Well, most of them are. You have to
until they get that token anyway.
Yeah. And you have to figure that if this and that is a fairly reputable service. They've been around for a while. Mm-hmm. So I don't mean to make everybody as paranoid as I am. It's just right now I think we're also security conscious of giving access to these things. I mean, we both know, we've heard all the discussions about I've got microphones live in my house now listening to everything. And yes. How does that make you feel? And does it disturb you? And then when you're talking about giving those microphones or related devices the ability to post things on your behalf, that,
or make purchases.
I've turned that off. Yeah. I don't want 50 pounds of dog food showing up when I don't have a dog.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's fascinating what's going on here. And if this and that is a fantastic tool with all the recipes. I mean, some of these people have written stuff that is just kind of amazing with what they can do. And then some of the other services that allow you to string things together. You're right. I mean, it's
exactly.
But they have. I know people that have their lights come on when they come home. Or excuse me.
Yeah, you can do that. You can say automatic or use your phone geolocation. When I get in this location, turn these lights on, unlock my door if you have automatic or August door locks, things like that. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you can do some powerful things with it when it works.
When it works, yeah. It's a little like some of the geofencing you can do sort of automatically with your iPhone with no third party involved. So
exactly.
I don't know about you. Are you finding yourself getting addicted to the Internet of Things stuff and having things done for you automatically?
I am a gadget guy. I'm a really big home automation guy. So my last 2 houses, I've been doing home automation. And this house, I actually have a plan. I have a spreadsheet that I've shopped around for different solutions, right? So I use Hue lights. I have an automatic garage door that I can open and close with my phone or with Amazon devices, Google Home, all of those, Siri. I'm working on like Nest. I have cameras. I have thermostat. I have the Protects. So as I have the disposable income, that's what I'm doing, is just investing more and more. I'd like to get August locks. I would like to get a Ring doorbell camera. So yeah, I really like the Internet of Things. I also understand. I'm in IT. I've been in IT for 30 years. I know the security risks. To me, they're small right now, but they could blow up any day as far as the risks. Also, their failure rate's pretty low, right? And so far I have not had any problems with it. I do know the risks and I accept them.
The fact that you're in IT and in security makes me feel better about some of this stuff. I would, up until this conversation, I think I would have been a little hesitant to put one of these controls on, say, my garage door, or rely on a Bluetooth lock of any kind. Yeah. But for you to say it, and you've obviously studied it and done this, makes me feel a little better about it.
Yeah, they're, for the most part, they're no more or less secure than a normal door lock. I mean, honestly, if somebody's going to want to get in your house, they're going to get in your house, and it's not going to be a wireless deadbolt that's going to stop them. They're just going to bust through the window and get in your house. So, I wouldn't put too much faith into a wireless deadbolt, knowing that somebody could actually hack it and open it. Okay, but if they're going to get in your house, they're going to find a way in, right? So I wouldn't say, oh, I'm not going to put that on because somebody might break into my house. Door locks are there to keep honest people honest. It's just a risk analysis you've got to make. Is it something I'm worth doing? It's kind of funny. We'll spend time thinking about a garage door opener and is it safe? Is it not safe? But then we'll put a Siri in our house that monitors everything we say. So to me, that's almost a little bit more risky, because your garage door, somebody may or may not open your garage door and steal something, but you've got this thing that's monitoring everything you're saying constantly. And knowing I have a history in intelligence, military intelligence, and electronic gathering, and knowing things like what Snowden was doing, and being in some of the same programs as him, just knowing that this stuff is being collected somewhere and filtered. It is what it is. You assume whatever risk by buying the product, and if you think you're okay, you're okay. I don't know how else to phrase it, really. It's only going to get worse, right? Or not worse, but it's only going to get more and more part of our lives, right? We're going to have autonomous cars. We're going to have things listening to us all the time. Everything's going to be voice controlled. 20, 30 years, it's just going to continue to go. So you can either fight it or you can kind of embrace it. But I would embrace it cautiously, right? Knowing some of the potential pitfalls of it.
Any particular reason, I didn't hear you mention it, any particular reason that you have Amazon devices and not the Google Home?
Because I'm an early adopter, and that was the first one.
Okay.
So I'm actually a Google house.
Really?
So I use Chromebooks just for fiddling around on the internet. I actually have a Pixel phone that I use. I don't use an iPhone. I do use an iPhone for work, and I actually use a Mac for work. And at home, I have an iMac. So I kind of straddle both, but. Siri, Google, they're the same, and actually the Amazon as well. They're all pretty much the same. One will leapfrog the other for a little bit, and then it'll catch up, and the other one will leapfrog it. So I'm just pretty much, I'm tied in. I looked at it, and the Amazon device is the one that it was first, and it seems to have the most features. Now, if Apple comes out with something, who knows? Maybe that'll have even more features. I haven't played with the Google Home yet, and I'm kind of tempted to, but I can't find myself spending $200 on a Google Home when I have 2 Amazon devices already.
Right. Yeah, it's the classic case of if the Google Home does something significantly different that you want to do, then okay, maybe. But otherwise, yeah, you're right. Amazon got there first. So
What's really killing me now is my corporate work profile. I can't sync that to any of my personal devices. So if I were to say, hey, Google Home or Siri or whatever, what's my day look like? They're like, oh, you have a basketball game tonight at 7 p.m. Well, you're not telling me the rest of my day where I have 8 other meetings, because you can't you can't plug into my Outlook, and my corporate security won't let me. So these are great devices, but for somebody like me who works works for a corporation, and they are, put us on lockdown, there's no way I can access my personal information, or my work information, I'm sorry, with my personal. It makes it kind of difficult, right, to tie the two together. Now, if I were a video producer at home, or a webmaster at home, I would have my personal in Google Calendar or Apple Calendar, and it would just see everything. But for somebody like me, I can't.
Right. It's an interesting point that I really hadn't thought about in those situations, because I don't have that kind of lockdown information. So if I ask for one of the devices to read me my calendar, I get my calendar. No way around that at this point with if this, then that, or anything else?
No. The only workaround I found is if I use my work iPhone, I can attach my personal Gmail account to it, and it'll actually display both my personal and my work calendar. The problem is I don't really want my personal information tied to my work device. And I would like to be able to do like a read only my calendar. I don't want anything else, just my calendar from my work devices, so I can put it on my personal device. But I'm really trying not to mix the two. I actually split my phones about 4 or 5 months ago. I was just carrying one work phone, and that was my everyday phone. And just the way things are going with corporations and legality and everything else, I don't want a random text message being used against me, or something like that. So I wanted to split the two. So my personal life is on my personal computer, my personal phone. I don't like the duality. I want everything in one.
Yeah. It seems like we're moving into a science fiction future where so many of the things that we saw as kids, no matter what age kid you were when, are starting to come to pass. And it's really interesting to watch the problems and the challenges associated with it. It looked so easy on TV or in the films, and all of a sudden you're faced with all these questions over security, privacy, making things tie together, multiple competing companies having multiple competing standards and devices that don't talk to each other. And so I realize it's early days, but still, it was supposed to be easier than this.
Yeah. If you're if you do everything Apple, or if you do everything Google, or everything Microsoft or whatever, it's a little bit easier. The problem is, Apple does some things better. Google does some things better. Amazon does some things better, or Amazon does something that Google hasn't done yet. So you could wait around for Apple to eventually do something if they do it, right? If they decide to do it, or you hop on early, and most of us are gadget people, right? So we want to hop on eventually and use it. Hey, that looks like cool technology. I want to use it. My company that I'm faithful to hasn't provided something yet. So yeah, it does make it hard, because then when Apple does come out with something, now I have to buy that. I have to retrain everything. And, now I have to spend money and time and invest, redoing everything for that product. It's kind of a good example is I can't use HomeKit on my iPhone to control my Hue lights, because my Hue lights are Gen 1, not Gen 2, the hub. And only will read Gen 2 hub. I can't justify going out and spending like $100 or whatever it is, $60 to buy a new hub when I already have a working system, just so it can use it with my iPhone that I don't even really use because it's work. So, it's things like that where, the technology is locked into a specific configuration, and it's like either you spend the money to do it or you don't. And I think it really just depends on how much you want that technology to work with something, right? So I went out and bought kind of counter my own point, I went out and bought a garage door opener that was like $250 when I could have bought one for probably $100, because it worked specifically with the Amazon devices. So I guess you just got to kind of pick what you want, what technology you want, and kind of go with it, and hope that it's going to meet your needs in the future as well. But yeah, it's hard. Like you said, everybody's got a different way of doing something. Everybody's got a different standard for doing something. There's 35 different chat clients out there, right? There's, 3 different operating systems for phones, for computers, and so the competition is nice, but at the same time, it would be nice if there would be more standards or if everybody worked together more.
And you understand why they don't, but you're right, it would be nice.
Yeah.
And to bring this full circle and back to the Macstock talk, that's one thing about if this, then that. It does work across most of these platforms, maybe not with every single capability, with a lot of them, so that maybe there's some features or capabilities that you can sort of substitute by using if this, then that.
Yeah, I would go with that. I can't think of any specific examples, but yeah. Or if you have older devices that don't have the capability, if you have like an old iPhone that doesn't have Siri or something, you might be able to do some of the features by if this, then that also has like a button app that you can download, and you can actually program it. So when you tap the button on the phone, it does a specific thing. So instead of using Siri to turn your lights on or off, for example, you could just tap the button and it would turn the lights on and off. So I guess you could use it for substituting or for extending devices that didn't necessarily have that feature to begin with. So it might fill in some of the cracks in that scenario.
So are you going to be showing like some sample recipes and things that can be done? Is that going to be primarily the focus here?
Yeah. I know Dave Hamilton, I think he's speaking before me. He's actually going to do home automation. And I was talking with him, so I might actually kind of dovetail into some of the stuff that he was doing or will be doing. I still have to coordinate with him. But kind of the first half of the talk was kind of explaining what is if this, then that, like what can you do with it, some of the examples. And then I kind of dive into different recipes. And I was thinking about breaking them up into different sections. So here's some social media ones. Here's some home automation. Here's some, data tracking, for example. Or, if they have one, if certain news breaks, like if you're looking for certain keywords and the news breaks, you can have it text you or something. So, alerting or, if your name is mentioned in Twitter, it'll actually flash your lights blue. So you can do different weird hybrid things like that. I think that's what I'm going to do is kind of give a bunch of recipes that I use and that also you can use for different things.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, that's great because some of what we're talking about here probably sounds just a little bit theoretical or whatever, and people are going to say, okay, well, that's interesting, but what can it do for me? And So I specifically use it for home automation. Is really what I mainly use it for. And I kind of wanted to talk about home automation, but Dave scooped me. So one of the things I mentioned that I used was if this then that. So, Mike came back and said, hey, how would you like to do if this then that? And I said, that's fine. So what I need to do before the talk, though, is also kind of branch out and see what else if this then that can do. So since I'm more focused on home automation, because I know it can do so much more. And I've actually been poking at it lately, just seeing, hey, what other new things are in there that I can try out that, might actually work for my workflows in my life. You were at Macstock last year, and you obviously found it beneficial because you're coming back this year, and you obviously found the speaking enjoyable or beneficial because you're doing that again this year.
Yes.
Give me some reasons people should come to Macstock. I know my reasons, but I'm always curious to hear yours. I'm really glad that they started Macstock 2 years ago. I did Macworld in, I think it was 2011. It was the first year that Apple was gone. Right shortly before they ended it. And that's where I met most of you guys for the first time. You and Allison and Don, Victor, some of the major podcasters of the Mac community. And, the sense of community is great. I don't do a lot of conventions, but I like conventions. I like the gatherings of people. People have a common interest, a common point of discussion, and they want to meet people like them. They want to discuss what they know about, whatever topic. They want to hear what you want to talk about. So the sense of community and just seeing everybody, it's great to meet up with everybody. I enjoy it. I don't live very far away, so for me, this is not a huge investment, right? Actually, I live 20 minutes from the McHenry Community College.
So, which is great for me because the last couple of years have been kind of hectic and I wouldn't have been able to travel. But since this is close, this has given me something to kind of look forward to and do every year and kind of focus my energy into.
That's good. That's good. Well, I hope folks will, come out and hear your talk and hear all the talks. Mm-hmm. There's so much good stuff. As you know, we've been talking to everyone, and I can't think.
2 days this year, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, and I can't think of anybody I've talked to so far, and I know I won't because I've cheated and looked at everybody's topics. I want to hear all of them. I want to hear yours because I don't know enough about if this then that, and you're going to get me started. And then you'll probably cost me more money and more time. But
well, thankfully the service is free, and most of the stuff it plugs into is free. So hopefully, it's not like Don's podcast where I spent thousands of dollars on software watching his screencasts. So yeah, I mean the entry point is very low for it. It's just what devices do I have around, and then. Hopefully I can kind of give some good examples of how it plugs into some hardware, and then maybe that might cost you. But for the most part, it's a pretty cheap workflow. The problem that I see is somebody else owns it, right? So if it goes away tomorrow, I don't have automation for half my stuff, so I have to figure out something else.
Right.
But most internet services are like that these days, right? We all depend on something, and if the person just decides to go away, then we've got to recover and go somewhere else.
And I would think if something like that happened to if this then that, there would be, well, first of all, you've said there are some alternative services, but I would think that somebody's going to jump in and create something like it simply because it is so useful. And exactly. It might have to become a pay-for service, but that too, that's part of the challenge of and the problem with doing things and becoming dependent on things that are free. Sometimes they go away.
Exactly.
Matt, until we see you in Chicago, where can folks find you, or where can they follow you? Or
well, right now, Twitter. It's BLDNGNERD, balding nerd.
Okay.
Or you can find me on Facebook. Just look for my name. There are some things that I'm working on that are coming out. So, in the past, I've done podcasts. I've done, 5 or 6, and I've appeared on probably 10 or 15. I'm actually starting to look to get back into podcasting again. So I'm working on that. So the announcement will be coming shortly. I don't know when I'm going to go live with it yet. I might even announce it at Macstock, like, my actual podcast and the URL and everything.
Great.
So, yeah, working on that. So right now, just Twitter, pretty much.
Good. Well, hey, you're welcome anytime. It's always good to talk to you, and I appreciate you taking the time to prepare us for your Macstock talk.
All right, thanks.
We'll see you in July.
All right, see you.
Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is Mac Voices. Again, I say it every time. I want to see you in Woodstock in July for Macstock. We're going to have a great time. We're going to learn a lot. We're going to get exposed to a lot of new ideas. And I can't think of a better way to spend a weekend than doing just that and interacting with some really amazing people. So Macstock2017.com. Go get registered. Get your hotel room. If you need flights, get them now before the prices go up. And we'll see you at Macstock. Until the next time, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes, links to subscribe, and to connect with Chuck on Twitter, Google+, Facebook, YouTube, Vimeo, SoundCloud, the Mac Voices blog, the Mac Voices Dispatch, our weekly newsletter, and on MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard that helps you do more with your Apple tech. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.